Some men walk through the world, taking everything while giving nothing back, draining the energy and resources of everyone around them without ever contributing to the relationships, families, or communities they claim to be part of. These individuals have mastered the art of appearing valuable, while actually being completely worthless in every way that truly matters. They consume opportunities, waste potential, and destroy the very foundations that others work so hard to build. The truth is, recognizing these patterns early can save you years of frustration, disappointment, and wasted investment in someone who will never change. Whether it's a partner, friend, family member, or colleague, understanding these warning signs will protect you from making costly mistakes with your time, energy, and emotions. Today, I'm going to reveal 5 clear signs that expose a truly useless man. These aren't just surface-level behaviors or minor flaws that everyone has. These are deep-rooted patterns that indicate someone who will consistently drain value from every situation they enter. Each sign I'm about to share has been carefully chosen because it predicts long-term behavior and shows you exactly what kind of person you're dealing with. But here's what's critical. You cannot afford to skip any part of this video. Each sign builds on the previous one, and missing even one piece could leave you vulnerable to manipulation or poor judgment. If you're pressed for time, increase the playback speed to 1.5 or 2 times rather than jumping around. This information could literally change how you evaluate people for the rest of your life. Now let's dive into the first sign. And trust me, once you see this pattern, you'll start spotting it everywhere like a detective who just learned a new trick. Picture this scenario that happens every single day across the world. A guy promises to handle something important. Maybe it's paying a bill, picking up groceries, or even something as simple as calling the plumber. Days pass, weeks go by, and suddenly the lights get cut off. There's no food in the house, or the kitchen is flooding. But here's the kicker. When confronted about it, he somehow transforms into a master magician who makes his responsibility disappear faster than a donut at a police station. The first sign of a useless man out of the 5 we're covering today is what I call the responsibility dodger. These guys have turned avoiding accountability into an Olympic sport, and they're going for the gold medal every single time. They have this supernatural ability to make every failure, every missed deadline, and every broken promise somehow become everyone else's fault, except their own. In relationships, you'll notice this when he consistently fails to follow through on commitments, but always has a ready-made excuse that sounds almost reasonable. The car broke down, his phone died, work was crazy, his mum called, traffic was bad, or his personal favorite. He forgot because he's been so stressed lately. What makes this behavior so dangerous is that these excuses aren't completely unbelievable, which is exactly why they work so well for so long. At work, the responsibility dodger perfects the art of being present but not productive. He shows up, sits at his desk, attends meetings, but when it comes time to deliver results, there's always some external factor that prevented him from succeeding. The software was glitchy. The instructions weren't clear. He didn't get the email, or someone else was supposed to help him but didn't. Meanwhile, his co-workers are quietly picking up his slack and covering for his incompetence. The most insidious part of dealing with a responsibility dodger is how they manipulate situations to make you feel guilty for holding them accountable. They'll look at you with those puppy dog eyes and say things like, "I can't believe you don't trust me after everything we've been through," or "I'm doing my best here, and it feels like nothing I do is ever good enough for you." Suddenly, you're the bad guy for expecting basic adult behavior from another adult. These masters of manipulation have studied human psychology without even realizing it. They know exactly which emotional buttons to push to make you question whether you're being too harsh or unreasonable. They'll bring up times when they did follow through, conveniently forgetting that doing something right once doesn't erase months of failures. They'll promise to do better, swear on their mother's grave that it won't happen again, and somehow convince you to give them just one more chance. The long-term consequences of enabling this behavior are absolutely devastating. When you constantly make excuses for someone who refuses to be accountable, you're essentially training them that their irresponsibility has no real consequences. You become their safety net, their backup plan, and their get-out-of-jail-free card, all rolled into one. Meanwhile, you're slowly losing your sanity, your trust in people, and your ability to rely on others. Watch out for these red flags in conversations. When discussing problems or failures, notice if they immediately start explaining why it wasn't their fault instead of taking ownership. Pay attention to whether they focus more on justifying their actions than on finding solutions. Listen for phrases like, "I would have, but," or "It's not my fault that." These are the calling cards of someone who has never learned to take responsibility for their own life. Now, there's something deeply unsettling about being around someone who drains your emotional battery without ever plugging it back in. I want you to think about that friend, family member, or partner who only seems to call when storm clouds are gathering in their world. Their phone rings, your heart sinks, and you already know this conversation is about to become a one-way therapy session where you're the unpaid counselor and they're the never-ending patient. The second sign of a useless man is being an emotional parasite. These individuals have mastered the art of extracting emotional support, comfort and energy from others while giving absolutely nothing back in return. They're emotional vampires who feast on your compassion and leave you feeling drained, exhausted and somehow guilty for not doing more. Picture Sarah, a woman I know who spent 3 years in a relationship with someone like this. Every single day started with him dumping his problems on her before she even had her morning coffee. Work was terrible, his family was annoying, his friends didn't understand him, his car was making weird noises, and his favorite TV show got cancelled. But when Sarah had a bad day at work or felt overwhelmed with her own challenges, suddenly he was too tired to talk, too stressed to listen, or too busy to offer support. The emotional parasite operates on a simple but devastating principle. Your problems exist to serve their emotional needs, but their problems are too important for them to care about anyone else's. When you try to share something that's bothering you, they'll listen for about 30 seconds before somehow steering the conversation back to their own issues. They might say something like, "That sounds tough, but speaking of tough situations, let me tell you what happened to me today." What makes this behavior particularly destructive is how they use guilt and manipulation to ensure you keep providing emotional support. When you're too exhausted to listen to their latest crisis, they'll make you feel selfish and uncaring. They'll say things like, "I thought I could count on you," or "I guess I don't have anyone who really understands me." They weaponize your empathy against you, turning your natural desire to help others into a tool for their own benefit. These emotional parasites are also completely incapable of celebrating anyone else's success or happiness. When something good happens in your life, they either ignore it completely or find ways to diminish it. If you get a promotion, they'll remind you how stressful more responsibility will be. If you're excited about a new relationship, they'll warn you about all the ways it could go wrong. They can't stand seeing others happy because it threatens their position as the person who needs the most support and attention. The most heartbreaking part is watching how they respond when you genuinely need emotional support. Suddenly, they become unavailable, distracted, or dismissive. They might physically be present, but emotionally they've checked out completely. They'll give you generic advice like, "Everything happens for a reason," or "Just think positive thoughts," before quickly changing the subject back to themselves. Learning to distinguish between someone going through a genuine rough patch and someone who's an emotional parasite is crucial for your mental health. Temporary struggles are normal, and healthy relationships involve mutual support during difficult times. But emotional parasites don't have temporary problems. They have permanent patterns of taking without giving. If you've been providing emotional support to someone for months or years without receiving any meaningful support back, you're dealing with an emotional parasite. If you're finding real value in learning how to protect yourself from these energy-draining relationships, and you haven't already, smash that subscribe button because we're just getting started, and you won't want to miss what's coming next in this series about recognizing toxic patterns before they destroy your peace of mind. Right now, millions of people around the world are carrying more than their fair share of responsibilities, while someone in their life sits back and enjoys the benefits of their hard work without lifting a finger to help. What you're about to discover will completely change how you evaluate the people in your personal and professional circles, and honestly, this insight alone could save you years of frustration and resentment. The third sign of a useless man is being a contribution avoider. These individuals have perfected the art of receiving maximum benefits while providing minimum effort. They're like skilled accountants who somehow always calculate that everyone else owes more than they do. But when it comes time for them to pay up, their wallet is mysteriously empty. In romantic relationships, the contribution avoider creates an invisible scoreboard where their small efforts count for double points, while your major contributions barely register. He might take out the trash once a month and expect praise like he just solved world hunger, while you handle cooking, cleaning, shopping, bill paying and emotional labor without any recognition. When you bring up the imbalance, he'll either get defensive about how hard he works or point to that one time 6 months ago when he did the dishes without being asked. The workplace version of this behavior is equally maddening. These guys show up to meetings, nod along with good ideas, and somehow manage to get their names attached to successful projects while doing minimal actual work. They're experts at looking busy without being productive, and they have an uncanny ability to disappear whenever difficult or tedious tasks need to be completed. When promotion time comes around, they'll take credit for team successes while blaming team failures on everyone else's lack of commitment. Family gatherings reveal the contribution avoider in all their glory. While everyone else is cooking, cleaning, organizing, and managing details, he's sitting in the living room watching TV or playing on his phone. When asked to help, he'll grudgingly do one small task and then act like he's carried the entire burden of the event. He shows up to enjoy the meal, the company, and the memories, but contributes nothing to making any of it possible. What's truly fascinating is the mental gymnastics these individuals perform to justify their lack of contribution. They've convinced themselves that their presence alone is a valuable contribution. They might say things like, "I work hard all week, so weekends are my time to relax," or "I'm more of a big picture person than a details person." They rationalize their laziness as personality traits or life philosophies rather than character flaws. The contribution avoider always has an excuse ready when called out on their behavior. They're too tired, too busy, too stressed, or too important to handle mundane tasks. They might claim they don't know how to do certain things, even though these are basic adult skills that anyone can learn. Sometimes they'll even do tasks so poorly that you end up redoing the work yourself, which trains you to stop asking for their help. This behavior is particularly damaging because it creates resentment that builds up over time like pressure in a volcano. The people around them start feeling used, unappreciated, and taken advantage of. Relationships become unbalanced and unfair, with one person giving everything and the other person taking everything. Eventually, the givers either explode in anger or quietly distance themselves from the taker. The contribution avoider expects full benefits from every situation while providing minimal input. They want to enjoy the clean house without helping to clean it, benefit from the family business without working in it, and receive love and support without giving any back. They see themselves as deserving of other people's efforts simply because they exist, not because they've earned it. Recognizing this pattern early can save you from years of one-sided relationships and unbalanced partnerships. When someone consistently finds ways to avoid contributing while enjoying the fruits of your labor, you're not dealing with someone who's temporarily overwhelmed or going through a rough patch. You're dealing with someone who fundamentally believes that other people exist to serve their needs, while they have no obligation to serve anyone else's. If this information is opening your eyes to patterns you hadn't recognized before, and you want to support the important work we're doing here to help people identify and avoid these toxic relationship dynamics, you can show your appreciation by clicking the thanks button just below this video. Every bit of support helps us continue creating content that genuinely changes lives for the better. Now let's continue with the fourth sign that might be the most destructive of all. This next lesson isn't just information you can casually absorb and forget about later. What I'm about to share with you represents one of the most crucial insights for evaluating the long-term potential of any relationship in your life, whether personal or professional. The people who exhibit this fourth sign don't just stay stuck in their current situation. They actively sabotage any possibility of progress, and worse yet, they'll try to drag everyone around them down to their level. The fourth sign of a useless man is being completely resistant to growth. These individuals have made peace with mediocrity in a way that's both fascinating and terrifying. They've looked at their potential, their opportunities, and their possibilities for improvement, and they've consciously chosen to reject all of it in favor of staying exactly where they are, no matter how miserable or unfulfilling that position might be. This resistance to growth shows up in their complete lack of ambition for self-improvement. While everyone around them is reading books, taking courses, learning new skills, or working toward goals, they're perfectly content to remain stagnant. They'll watch others evolve and progress while making no effort to develop themselves in any way. It's like they've decided that personal development requires too much effort, so they'd rather just accept whatever limited version of themselves they currently are. When you try to encourage their growth or suggest ways they could improve their situation, you'll encounter resistance that feels almost aggressive. They don't just politely decline your suggestions, they actively resent them. They'll make you feel like you're being pushy or unrealistic for believing they could be better than they currently are. They might say things like, "Not everyone needs to be constantly improving themselves," or "I'm happy with who I am, why can't you accept that?" What makes this behavior particularly toxic is how they react to other people's efforts at self-improvement. Instead of being inspired or supportive, they become critical and discouraging. When you start working out, they'll make jokes about gym obsession. When you decide to learn a new skill, they'll predict you'll give up within a month. When you set ambitious goals, they'll remind you of all the reasons why you'll probably fail. They can't stand watching others grow because it highlights their own stagnation. These individuals have a supernatural ability to sabotage opportunities for advancement, both for themselves and others. If a better job opportunity comes up, they'll find reasons why it's not worth pursuing. If someone offers to help them learn something new, they'll make excuses about being too busy or too old. They destroy possibilities before they even get a chance to develop, and they encourage others to do the same. The growth-resistant person prefers their comfort zone even when it's making them miserable. They'll complain constantly about their situation, but refuse to take any steps to change it. They want the benefits of growth without any of the work that growth requires. They expect their circumstances to improve magically while they continue doing exactly what they've always done. What's most heartbreaking is how they bring down the energy and motivation of everyone around them. Their negativity and resistance to change creates an atmosphere where ambition feels foolish and dreams feel unrealistic. They normalize settling for less and make mediocrity seem like wisdom rather than laziness. People start questioning their own goals and aspirations because this person has convinced them that wanting more is somehow wrong or unrealistic. The long-term consequences of having growth-resistant people in your life are absolutely devastating. They don't just stay stuck themselves, they become anchors that keep you from moving forward. Their constant discouragement and negativity can slowly erode your confidence and ambition. You might find yourself avoiding challenges or opportunities because you've internalized their belief that growth is pointless or impossible. This pattern rarely changes because growth resistance isn't just about laziness or fear. It's about a fundamental belief system that says people can't really change and improvement isn't worth the effort. They've convinced themselves that accepting limitations is wisdom rather than giving up. They see your desire for growth as naive rather than admirable, and they'll work hard to convince you to join them in their stagnation. The most important thing to understand about growth-resistant individuals is that their resistance isn't really about them. It's about you. They know that if you continue growing and improving, you'll eventually outgrow them completely. Your progress threatens their worldview and makes their lack of effort more obvious. So they'll do everything they can to keep you at their level, because watching you succeed makes them confront their own choices to remain mediocre. Now, I want you to take a moment and think about the relationships, opportunities, and experiences in your life that started with promise and potential, but somehow ended up damaged, diminished, or completely destroyed. Now consider whether there was a common factor in these situations. A person who seemed to have a gift for turning positive situations negative and making valuable things worthless. If someone comes to mind, you've likely encountered what I call a value destroyer. The fifth and final sign of a useless man is his ability to actively diminish the value in every situation he enters. These individuals don't just fail to add value, they systematically destroy the value that others have worked hard to create. They're like reverse alchemists who turn gold into garbage wherever they go. Think about that business partnership that seemed promising until one person started cutting corners, alienating customers, and making decisions that damaged the company's reputation. Or remember that group project in school where everyone was excited and motivated until one member started creating conflicts, missing deadlines, and bringing down the whole team's energy. Value destroyers have this uncanny ability to take something good and make it significantly worse through their actions and attitudes. In romantic relationships, value destroyers waste not just money, but time, emotional energy, and opportunities for shared growth. They might spend money on things that provide no long-term benefit while complaining about not being able to afford things that would actually improve their lives. They squander chances for deeper connection by choosing conflict over communication, and they miss opportunities to build something meaningful together because they're too focused on immediate gratification. The workplace value destroyer is easy to spot once you know what to look for. They avoid difficult projects that could showcase their skills, take credit for collaborative efforts while contributing minimal work, and create unnecessary drama that distracts everyone from productive activities. They discourage innovation and creativity by shooting down new ideas before they've been properly explored. They turn team meetings into complaint sessions and transform collaborative environments into toxic spaces where people avoid taking risks or sharing ideas. Family dynamics reveal value destroyers in particularly painful ways. They miss important family events not because of emergencies or unavoidable conflicts, but because they simply don't prioritize these connections. They create tension during gatherings by bringing up old grievances or starting arguments about sensitive topics. They diminish the joy of celebrations and achievements by focusing on negative aspects or making everything about their own problems and dissatisfactions. What makes value destroyers particularly dangerous is their tendency to disguise destruction as honesty or realism. When they discourage someone from pursuing a dream, they frame it as protecting them from disappointment. When they criticize successful people, they call it keeping them humble. When they create drama and conflict, they claim they're just being authentic or expressing their feelings. They rationalize their destructive behavior as virtues rather than recognizing them as character flaws. The jealousy component of value destruction is perhaps the most toxic element. Value destroyers can't genuinely celebrate other people's successes because those achievements highlight what they could have accomplished if they had made different choices. Instead of using others' success as inspiration or motivation, they look for ways to undermine it. They might spread rumors, point out flaws, or find reasons why the success isn't as impressive as it appears. Value destroyers prefer chaos over stability because chaos allows them to avoid accountability and responsibility. In stable, peaceful environments, their lack of contribution becomes obvious and their destructive tendencies stand out. But in chaotic situations, their negative behavior blends in with the general dysfunction, and they can avoid being held responsible for specific problems or failures. The long-term damage these individuals cause extends far beyond immediate situations. They destroy trust between people, create lasting conflicts that affect entire communities, and establish patterns of dysfunction that can persist long after they've moved on to destroy value somewhere else. Families stop gathering because of the tension they create. Friend groups dissolve because of the drama they generate. Businesses fail because of the toxicity they introduce. Perhaps most importantly, value destroyers damage people's faith in relationships, partnerships, and collaborative efforts. After dealing with someone who consistently destroys value, people become hesitant to invest their time, energy, and resources in shared endeavors. They become cynical about others' motives and protective of their own contributions, which makes it harder to build the trust and cooperation necessary for creating real value in the future. Recognition is the first step in protection. When you notice someone consistently turning positive situations negative, wasting valuable resources, or creating conflict where none existed before, you're dealing with a value destroyer. These patterns don't improve with time or patience. They typically get worse as the person becomes more comfortable in your life and feels less need to hide their destructive tendencies. Now that you've discovered these 5 devastating signs, you stand at a crossroads that will determine the quality of your relationships for the rest of your life. You have the power to recognize responsibility dodgers before they make you their safety net. Spot emotional parasites before they drain your energy. Identify contribution avoiders before they turn you into their personal servant. Avoid growth-resistant people before they become anchors holding you back. And protect yourself from value destroyers before they demolish everything you've worked to build. But here's what separates winners from losers in life. Winners take this knowledge and implement it immediately, while losers nod along, feel enlightened for a moment, and then go right back to making the same mistakes they've always made. If you walk away from this video and continue accepting toxic behavior from the useless people in your life, you're essentially choosing to remain a victim of circumstances you now have the power to change. These patterns rarely change without significant intervention because useless people benefit too much from their current behavior to willingly give it up. The responsibility dodger gets to avoid consequences. The emotional parasite gets endless support. The contribution avoider gets maximum benefits for minimum effort. The growth-resistant person gets to stay comfortable, and the value destroyer gets to control situations through chaos. Your job now is to evaluate your current relationships honestly and make some potentially difficult decisions. Set clear boundaries about what behavior you will and won't accept. Stop making excuses for people who consistently demonstrate these patterns. Protect your time, energy, and resources by investing them in people who actually add value to your life rather than subtract from it. Remember that recognizing these signs isn't about becoming judgmental or harsh. It's about becoming wise and selective. The people you surround yourself with will either elevate your life or contaminate it. There's no middle ground when it comes to the influence others have on your success, happiness, and peace of mind. The algorithm knows exactly what video will serve you best next, based on your viewing patterns and interests. So make sure you click on that suggested video appearing on your screen right now. It's specifically chosen to give you the next piece of information you need to continue transforming your ability to build healthier, more valuable relationships in every area of your life.